I'm looking at a stack of reports here that completely break my brain. Like, we have a struggling wool shoe company that is randomly pivoting to run artificial intelligence server farms, a literal robot ending a Major League Baseball game, and the Pope, yes, the actual Pope, deploying an AI droid for international diplomacy. You have to stick around until the very end of the episode to hear how insane these details get.
We are Mike and Abby, and welcome to Daily World Podcasts. Forget everything you know about boring news. We are taking the wildest, most impactful stories that hit the planet today and breaking them down so you don't have to.
Whether you are on a long drive, crushing a workout, or just feeling a little bored, we are here to keep you updated with the world and make your next hour incredibly interesting.
It is an absolute train wreck out there today. I mean, what is terrifying is that there's this undeniable thread running through all of it.
Right, like a systemic failure.
Exactly. Everywhere you look right now, systems are completely losing their human element and just breaking down. Humans are handing the steering wheel over to algorithms, to automated financial models, to literal machines.
And the real-world consequences are hitting us in real time.
Yeah.
Well, we are starting with the most absurd corporate whiplash I think I've ever seen. Allbirds. Remember them?
Oh, the sustainable shoe company.
Right. A few years ago, everyone in Silicon Valley, like every tech bro, was wearing these natural material, breathable merino wool sneakers.
Yeah, they were the uniform.
They were. Well, the hype died. Their stock has crashed 99% from its peak.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been bleeding revenue, totally contracting, practically on life support. So they need a survival strategy.
And what do? They are abandoning the sneaker industry entirely.
Wait, entirely? Like completely walking away from their core physical product?
Done. Wiped out. They are officially exiting footwear and rebranding as a computing infrastructure company.
You have got to be kidding me. I am serious. They are changing their name to New Bird AI. They actually secured a $50 million convertible financing facility to buy high-performance GPUs.
Oh, what?
Yeah. They are building out a GPU as a service platform. And get this, to fund this sudden transformation, they just sold their entire shoe brand, all their footwear assets, their intellectual property, to American Exchange Group for a measly $39 million.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to stop you because the mechanics of this do not make any sense at all.
Go ahead.
A convertible financing facility basically means they borrowed $50 million, but instead of paying it back with cash they don't have, they can pay it back by issuing new shares of their company.
Right.
It is a massive, desperate gamble on their future stock price.
Yeah.
But the bigger issue is the operational reality here. How does a company that weaves sheep's wool transition to running data centers?
Well, they think they can just buy the hardware and plug it in. And the crazy part, the market actually loved it. Their stock surged 582% in a single day. Yeah, they completely wiped out the short sellers who are holding 17% of the stock float. Investors are just blindly throwing money at the letters AI.
Ah, yes. Because making a breathable, moisture-wicking merino wool sneaker is the exact same skill set as engineering the specialized liquid cooling and industrial power supply required to run a massive GPU cluster.
Total garbage, right?
It is the most desperate, transparent escape hatch I have ever seen. Running an AI server farm isn't just buying computers from Best Buy. You are talking about complex fluid dynamics to keep the NVIDIA chips from literally melting.
Exactly.
You are talking about negotiating multi-gigawatt power contracts with utility grids. They are a shoe company. They do not have the technical expertise for this.
No, it is a pure cash grab driven by the AI narrative. It is entirely about stock price manipulation rather than actual engineering. But look at the flip side of this AI frenzy, where companies that actually do understand technology are using it to completely hollow out their workforce.
You're talking about Snap.
Yeah, Snap, the company behind Snapchat. They just announced they're firing 16% of their entire workforce.
16% in one sweep.
1,000 human beings just gone. The CEO, Evan Spiegel, is citing rapid advancements in AI that allow tiny teams to do the work of massive departments. They project this is going to save them $500 million annually.
But wait, how much of their actual day-to-day infrastructure is automated now? I mean, software engineering still requires human architecture, right? You can't just have a chatbot run Snapchat.
Well, that is where the reality is getting incredibly dark for human workers. Internal data from Snap shows that over 65% of their new production code is now generated entirely by AI systems.
65%. Let's translate what that actually means on the ground for a second.
Yeah, break that down.
When we say AI generates code, it isn't like a human programmer typing out logic line by line anymore.
Hmm.
These systems, these large language models, are trained on billions of lines of code from places like GitHub.
Right.
They predict the next necessary line of syntax based on massive mathematical probability trees. So a human engineer types a basic prompt like create a login authentication loop.
And it just spits it out.
Exactly. The AI spits out the entire block of code in seconds. The human's job has been downgraded from an architect to a proofreader.
Exactly. And because the AI is so fast at the raw typing and the basic logic, Snap realized they just don't need junior developers anymore.
Right. The entry-level jobs are gone.
Gone. They aren't just firing people, they actually closed 300 open job requisitions. They are permanently reducing human headcount in favor of these autonomous coding agents.
And Wall Street cheered, I bet.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
The stock surged 11% pre-market on this news. Investors are practically demanding this kind of job slaughter.
But there is a massive physical real-world cost to all this AI expansion that these tech companies are just completely ignoring.
Power grids.
Yes, the power grids. They treat AI like it exists in the clouds, but it requires heavy, brutal industry. Have you looked at what just happened in Maine?
Oh, the data center ban.
Yes. Maine just passed LD 307. It is the first in the nation's statewide ban on large-scale AI data centers.
Wow, a full ban.
Yeah, they have officially paused all approvals until at least October 2027 for any facility requiring 20 megawatts of power or more.
See, people hear 20 megawatts and their eyes just glaze over because it sounds like abstract science fiction jargon. Let's contextualize what that actually looks like on the physical grid.
Okay, 20 megawatts is enough raw electricity to power roughly 16,000 homes. Picture an entire mid-sized American town. Every single television, every refrigerator, every air conditioning unit running on full blast at the exact same time. Now compress all of that vibrating, intense electrical draw into a single windowless warehouse of humming servers.
And that's just one facility.
That is just one of these AI data centers. The thermal exhaust alone requires millions of gallons of water just to keep the servers from catching fire.
And these hyperscale infrastructures are threatening to completely destabilize the entire New England power grid. If you drop a facility like that onto a local grid, it drains the capacity, right?
Right.
Which means the utility companies have to build more substations and burn more fuel, which instantly spikes residential electricity rates for everyday people.
Which is exactly why the legislation passed. But it mostly went along party lines, and even Governor Janet Mills is pushing back against her own state's ban.
Wait, really? Why?
She wants a specific exemption for a proposed data center at a retired paper mill in the town of Jay.
Why that specific mill?
Because it would create local jobs. The paper mill shut down, the town lost its primary economic engine, and the data center promises to bring in construction and maintenance work.
Oh, I see.
So you have this intense friction playing out in real time. Tech companies want unlimited, unregulated power for their AI models. Citizens want affordable electricity and a stable grid. And politicians are caught right in the middle, trying to balance basic grid security with the desperate need for rural job creation.
The physical infrastructure of our world literally cannot support the software we are trying to run. We are hitting a hard physical limit.
That whole AI cash grab is ridiculous, but it completely pales in comparison to the absolute nightmare of the U.S. military giving AI the keys to global warfare in a fraction of a second.
Oh, man. You are talking about War Matrix.
Yes.
The U.S. Air Force just officially debuted this AI-powered wargaming system at the GE-26 benchmark wargame down in Alexandria, Virginia. They had over 150 participants, including like top-tier leadership from the Pacific Air Forces.
Right.
They used this War Matrix system to run 6 24-hour game time moves.
So they simulate a full day of global combat.
Exactly. But it isn't like moving pieces on a map. War Matrix uses physics-based modeling and AI adjudication to run these massive conflict simulations up to 10,000 times faster than real time.
Okay, wait, back up. Stop right there. Because the military always puts out these reassuring press releases.
Oh, totally.
They claim that despite this extreme automation, quote, human judgment remains central to all final tactical decisions.
Yeah, that's the line.
So how does that actually work mechanically? I mean, seriously, think about the physics of what you just said. How is human judgment supposedly central when the machine is adjudicating complex, multi-domain battles across air, land, sea, and space in literal milliseconds?
It is the OODA loop problem. Observe, orient, decide, act. That is the fundamental cycle of all combat. War Matrix compresses that loop so tightly that a human cannot possibly interject.
Exactly. It is physically impossible for a human brain to process radar data, troop movements, supply chain logistics, and weather patterns at that speed.
Right.
Which means the humans aren't actually making decisions. They're just rubber stamping the algorithm's conclusions.
They just watch the screen.
Yeah. The AI says, based on 10,000 simulations, if you don't bomb this bridge in the next 3 seconds, you lose the theater. The human commander has no time to verify the math. They just have to click approve. We're entirely surrendering the friction of human hesitation, which is where ethics actually live, to a math equation.
The military argues it allows commanders to test thousands of battle plan variations before committing actual forces. But you are absolutely right. The friction between human ethics and AI warfare is hitting a boiling point right now. And, shockingly, the pushback is actually coming from inside Silicon Valley.
You mean Anthropic?
Just look at Anthropic. They just publicly rejected a massive demand from the Department of Defense.
Anthropic, the company behind the Claude AI model. I mean, they are one of the big three, right alongside OpenAI and Google.
Yes. The DoD wanted to use Claude for real-time intelligence adjudication. They wanted the AI to process drone feeds, satellite imagery, and intercepted comms.
Wow.
But Anthropic flat out refused to lift their contractual restrictions on autonomous weaponry and domestic surveillance.
Because they stuck to their core architecture. Anthropic built Claude on what they call constitutional AI.
Right, explain that.
They literally hard-coded a constitution into the model's training data. It's a set of ethical rules the AI is mathematically forbidden from violating, like causing human harm or assisting in kinetic strikes.
And because of that refusal, because they wouldn't compromise that hard-coded constitution, Anthropic has reportedly been completely blacklisted from certain high-tier defense contracts.
Blacklisted?
Yeah, the Pentagon essentially said, if your AI won't help us target adversaries, we won't buy it.
Well, OpenAI and other rival firms are quietly softening their own terms of service, removing anti-military clauses to secure those incredibly lucrative government contracts.
Exactly. But what is absolutely fascinating here is the financial market's reaction. You would think losing the Pentagon would tank a tech company.
You'd think so.
But the private market rewarded Anthropic's ethical stance. Their valuation just hit $380 billion anyway.
$380 billion?
Yes. Investors are betting that a safe, non-militarized AI is actually more valuable in the enterprise sector. So we have this massive philosophical divide in Silicon Valley over the militarization of generative models. But it isn't just the military where AI is causing systemic chaos. It is failing hilariously in the civilian sector, specifically in the legal system.
Oh, you mean the Nebraska Supreme Court case?
Yes. The Nebraska Supreme Court just suspended an Omaha attorney named Greg Lake.
What did he do?
He used AI to write an appellate brief for a highly complex divorce case. He fed the details to a chatbot and asked it to generate a legal argument. The brief he submitted to the state's highest court contained 63 legal citations. 57 of them were completely defective.
57? How does a lawyer not check 57 citations? Did he just print it out and blindly hand it to the judge?
It gets so much worse. 20 of those citations were complete hallucinations.
Okay, let's break down why that happens, because people think AI is a search engine. It isn't.
Exactly, it's not Google.
An AI doesn't have a database of laws it looks up. It has a predictive text engine, a massive vector space of associations. It knows that the word divorce is often mathematically close to words like custody and alimony, and it knows what a legal citation is supposed to look like syntactically.
Right.
So it just confidently guesses the next word. It completely fabricated fake cases, generated fake legal quotes from judges who don't exist, and invented non-existent state statutes.
The craziest detail about that case is that the AI-generated text included highly realistic, plausible-sounding docket numbers and procedural history.
You're kidding?
No, it didn't just say Smith v. Jones. It generated things like case number CV 2023-459, decided in the 2nd District. It was so convincingly formatted that it actually temporarily misled the Nebraska Supreme Court's own research staff.
Oh my God.
They spent hours trying to track down these phantom cases.
Lake kept denying he used AI, right? Blaming a new paralegal or a database glitch.
Yeah, but the court said his explanation completely lacked credibility. They suspended his license. And this is an isolated incident. Courts across the country are dealing with this. They have already imposed over $145,000 in sanctions against attorneys for AI negligence this year alone.
And it is changing the fundamental bedrock rules of legal confidentiality. Did you see the ruling from federal judge Jed Rakoff in Manhattan?
Against the former CEO of GWG Holdings, Bradley Hepner.
Right. Hepner is facing a massive securities fraud case. He used Anthropic's Claude to prepare legal defense documents. He was uploading sensitive financial data, asking the AI to strategize his defense against the prosecution.
Wait.
Yeah. Judge Rakoff ruled that Hepner has to hand over all 31 documents generated by the AI directly to the prosecution.
That completely destroys attorney-client privilege.
It does. The judge explicitly stated the reasoning, and it is fascinating legally. He ruled that AI has no independent legal judgment. It is a third-party commercial software product. Therefore, conversing with a chatbot has zero attorney-client privilege. When you type your defense strategy into a prompt box, it is routed to a server owned by a tech corporation. The judge ruled it is legally equivalent to posting your defense strategy on a public billboard.
Law firms must be panicking. They are urgently advising clients to treat all AI prompts as discoverable evidence. Anything you type into ChatGPT or Claude can and will be subpoenaed by opposing counsel.
If you are watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Think about that for a second. If you were sitting in a courtroom right now with your freedom or your finances on the line, would you ever trust an algorithm to write your defense strategy? Let us know, because clearly these highly paid CEOs and lawyers are losing their minds and doing exactly that.
We'll get back to the tech fallout later, but first, you have to hear the conflicting, catastrophic mess happening with global ceasefires right now.
We really need to lay out exactly what is happening in the Middle East because the communication breakdown we are seeing at the highest levels of global leadership is terrifying.
It is.
And just to be completely clear, we are looking strictly at the mechanics of these negotiations as they are being reported. President Trump just announced a 10-day temporary ceasefire for Israel and Lebanon. This was explicitly framed and communicated to the world as a pause meant for urgent humanitarian release.
But the reality on the ground contradicted that announcement almost instantly. There was a complete, violent disconnect between the diplomatic statement in Washington and the military reality.
Well, it happened.
Literally, immediately after the White House announced this ceasefire, Israeli forces executed a concentrated 10-minute aerial bombardment of Beirut and surrounding regions late at night on April 15th. Yeah. The operation was internally dubbed Eternal Darkness.
The fallout is horrific. Over 300 people dead, over 1,150 injured.
In 10 minutes.
Let's think about the logistics of a city dealing with that. The sheer volume of casualties occurring within a compressed 10-minute window completely overwhelmed the local hospitals. Health officials reported the triage systems broke down immediately.
I can't even imagine.
Patients were dying in the hallways simply because there wasn't enough staff, blood, or surgical space to treat the critically wounded, all arriving at the exact same moment.
And the diplomatic response to this contradiction is a chaotic, finger-pointing blame game. Vice President J.D. Vance came out and called the inclusion of Lebanon in the ceasefire announcement a legitimate misunderstanding.
A misunderstanding.
Yeah, he suggested that Tehran thought the pause extended to Lebanon, but that the actual negotiated agreement didn't.
But that narrative was instantly shattered. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, who is one of the primary figures helping mediate the Backchannel talks, flatly contradicted Vance.
Really?
Yes. Sharif claimed the White House directly and explicitly approved a ceasefire that covered everywhere, including Lebanon.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu explicitly denied agreeing to step down any attacks at all. So you have three different governments issuing completely contradictory statements, claiming entirely different realities, while hundreds of civilians are caught in the crossfire.
The communication architecture of international diplomacy has just fractured.
It really has. But underneath that public confusion, there is an actual highly complex negotiation happening regarding the broader U.S.-Iran conflict.
Yes, the Backchannel mediation. This is how geopolitics actually functions when direct communication breaks down. Pakistan, working alongside Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Egypt, is brokering a massive 15-point proposal from Washington to Tehran.
And the demands.
The U.S. demands are strict and absolute. They want a 1-month total ceasefire, the immediate handover of all highly enriched uranium stockpiles to international monitors, and a definitive, verifiable halt to all ballistic missile development.
In exchange, Iran's counterproposal is equally aggressive. They are demanding formal recognition of Iranian sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, concrete military guarantees against future preemptive strikes, and massive financial reparations for infrastructure damage.
The physical toll of this conflict over the last few years is staggering. We are looking at 15 U.S. military fatalities and 14 Israeli fatalities compared to over 6,000 Iranian and proxy fatalities.
Yeah.
But the real warfare is economic. Iran has suffered over $145 billion in economic damage. The U.S. Navy currently has over 10,000 personnel actively blockading the Strait of Hormuz.
It is being described by analysts as financial equivalent warfare. The U.S. is targeting the Iranian banking system, their oil exports, their swift access, with the exact same strategic intensity as kinetic bombings.
It's a siege.
The goal is to starve the state machinery.
And the economic pressure on the ground is so severe that we are seeing reports of everyday Kashmiri citizens who share deep religious and cultural ties, literally breaking their children's piggy banks and donating their personal generational gold to help fund the Iranian state. That is how dire the financial strangulation has become.
And while the entire world is intensely focused on the Middle East, another massive, forgotten war is entering its fourth year.
Right.
The civil war in Sudan between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces. There is a total military impasse. Neither side can gain ground. It has resulted in mass displacement, with millions of refugees packed along the Chad-Sudan border and spreading catastrophic famine conditions.
The human element of this is just devastating, particularly for the next generation. In the city of El Fasher, the education system has been completely wiped out. The schools are rubble. Children are being forced to abandon their education and use traditional gold panning methods just to survive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are taking mountainside stones down to the Kunar riverbed.
Explain how brutal that work actually is for a kid.
It is grueling physical labor. They're displacing heavy sediment, relying on the specific gravity of gold to separate tiny flakes from the river rocks. They're doing this for 12 hours a day just to find enough gold nuggets to trade for basic survival necessities like flour and clean water.
That's heartbreaking.
And the students who are somehow still trying to learn, still trying to hold on to their futures, are studying by candlelight because the entire power grid has been destroyed.
As dark as that reality is, wait until you hear how the Vatican is responding to all of this global instability using a literal robot.
It is the strangest intersection of ancient religious tradition and modern tech I have ever seen. Pope Leo XIV is currently on a massive 11-day African tour. He just arrived in Algeria, which is historically significant because Algeria is a 99% Sunni Muslim nation.
First time a pope has visited, right?
Exactly. This is the first ever papal visit there. It is a major diplomatic push.
And he didn't hold back his rhetoric either. He delivered an address publicly and fiercely decrying a world ruled by, quote, tyrants who ravage the earth for power and resources.
That's strong wording.
It is being widely interpreted by global press as a direct, aggressive rebuke to the recent U.S. military escalations in the Middle East.
Which is fascinating context because President Trump previously attacked the Pope. Trump called him weak on crime and accused the Vatican of catering to the radical left. So the Vatican is actively, intentionally positioning itself on the global stage as a moral and diplomatic counterweight to U.S. foreign policy.
But here is the bizarre detail that completely derails the solemnity of this historic diplomatic mission.
What did he do?
During a technology summit in Africa on this exact tour, the Pope utilized a U.S.-made humanoid AI robot. The Vatican is literally experimenting with using the agentic workforce for global diplomacy.
I cannot wrap my head around that visual. Imagine the theological paradox. The Pope, the spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics, addressing the dangers of global tyranny and the sanctity of human life, while standing right alongside an artificial intelligence droid.
It's wild.
The Vatican is treating AI not as a tool, but as an emissary.
Meanwhile, back in the U.S., domestic politics are moving just as aggressively and chaotically. President Trump was in Las Vegas for Tax Day.
Right, at the AC Hotel Las Vegas Symphony Park. The event kicked off at exactly 4 p.m. EDT. He is heavily pushing his no tax on tips policy, which is a highly targeted strategy.
To service workers.
He is clearly going after the massive service industry voting bloc in the West, trying to secure the culinary and hospitality unions.
But the president's schedule has been completely frantic. He is actually the first sitting U.S. president in history to personally attend oral arguments at the Supreme Court.
Wait, really? The first?
Yes, he physically went to the court for the hearing regarding his own executive order that attempts to narrow birthright citizenship.
It is a massive flex of executive presence in the judicial branch. It breaks all traditional norms of separation. And while he is sitting at the Supreme Court, Congress is completely falling apart at the seams.
Oh, the ethics probes.
Representative Eric Swalwell just resigned amidst a House ethics probe into sexual misconduct.
And literally within 24 hours of Swalwell resigning, Representative Tony Gonzalez announced he is retiring. Gonzalez admitted to a long-term extramarital affair with an aide who tragically died by suicide.
The sheer turnover in the House right now is unprecedented. The ethics investigations are completely rewriting the political map ahead of the midterms.
But the biggest domestic clash happening right now isn't in Congress. It is between the executive administration and the Federal Reserve. The Department of Justice has officially launched a massive probe into the Federal Reserve over a $2.5 billion headquarters renovation.
A building renovation. Why is the DOJ, the highest law enforcement agency in the country, investigating drywall and plumbing at a bank?
Well, that is exactly the point of contention. The Federal Reserve is supposed to be politically independent. They fund themselves through interest on government securities, not through congressional appropriations.
All right.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is furious. He is publicly calling this DOJ probe a politically motivated pressure campaign orchestrated directly by the Trump administration to force the central bank to lower interest rates.
So it's leverage.
Yeah. Powell maintains the renovation is purely for necessary infrastructure integrity and high-level cybersecurity upgrades.
Pause for a second. If you're watching on YouTube right now, drop a comment. Do you think investigating a building renovation to force interest rate cuts is genius political leverage, or is it totally unhinged abuse of power? Let us know.
Speaking of unhinged money grabs, wait until we look at what a federal jury just did to Ticketmaster.
It is about time. A federal jury in New York officially ruled that Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation, are operating an illegal monopoly across 22 states.
Huge news.
They systematically proved that the company smothered all competition and relentlessly overcharged consumers.
But the jury didn't just hand down a vague, symbolic ruling. They brought the exact math. They dug into the dynamic pricing algorithms and determined that Ticketmaster overcharged consumers by an average of exactly $1.72 per ticket.
I need you to explain how they arrived at that exact number, because Ticketmaster's fees are usually way higher than $1.72.
Oh, they definitely are. The service fees you see at checkout are often $20 or $30. But the $1.72 is the monopoly premium. The court modeled what a competitive market would look like. If venues actually had a choice between ticketing platforms, say, if SeatGeek or AXS could bid for the contract, competition would force the platforms to lower their fees to win the business.
That makes sense.
The jury calculated that the lack of competition allowed Ticketmaster to artificially inflate their baseline fee algorithm by exactly $1.72 across millions of transactions. It is a hidden tax on live entertainment.
That specific number is huge. It doesn't instantly lower ticket prices today, but establishing that quantifiable metric gives a federal judge the power to potentially order hundreds of millions of dollars in direct consumer refunds.
Exactly.
It could force Live Nation to legally divest certain venues and cap service fees at amphitheaters. This finally opens the door to actually break their grip on the live event architecture.
It is a massive blow to corporate monopolies. And we are seeing similar, intense pushback in Hollywood right now. Actor Mark Ruffalo just testified at a Senate hearing alongside a coalition of over 1,000 entertainment figures.
What are they fighting?
They're fighting against the proposed $111 billion mega merger between Paramount and Warner Bros. Discovery.
And Ruffalo did not mince words. He honed in on the core structural outrage of this deal: Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav is set to receive a $550 million payout if the merger goes through.
$500 million.
Ruffalo called the payout obscene, and let's break down why the industry is so angry. When private equity and massive media conglomerates merge, they do it through leverage buyouts. They take on massive amounts of corporate debt to buy the other company, and then they saddle the newly merged company with that debt.
Right.
To pay it off, they slash jobs, cancel movies, and gut the creative departments. Ruffalo is arguing that Zaslav is essentially being rewarded with $500 million for intentionally crushing Warner Bros. With debt to the point where they were forced to sell.
And what makes it even worse optically is that Paramount CEO David Ellison didn't even show up to the Senate hearing to defend the deal.
He didn't even go.
No, he cited a family death. But his absence left Zaslav sitting there alone, taking the absolute brunt of the industry's anger. This merger would combine CBS, HBO, Paramount, and Warner Bros. Into an unstoppable, monolithic media behemoth, cutting thousands of middle-class entertainment jobs in the process.
It is corporate consolidation at its absolute worst, and it is happening against a backdrop of a seriously deteriorating global economy. The Peterson Institute for International Economics just issued a major flashing red warning.
What are they saying?
Economist Karen Dinan stated that the global growth slowdown is rapidly accelerating.
And Dinan explicitly pointed to the Iran war blockade and the Strait of Hormuz that we talked about earlier as the primary catalyst.
Exactly. When 10,000 U.S. Navy personnel blockade one of the world's most critical oil choke points, the disruption to energy markets is instant. The cost of shipping spikes, oil prices surge, and operational costs for every business on Earth skyrocket.
And that causes stagflation.
Right, classic stagflation, where economic growth stagnates but inflation keeps rising because the supply chain is broken.
And we are seeing that break down the domestic economy right now. The U.S. housing market is completely freezing up. Existing home sales fell 3.6% in March, hitting their absolute lowest level since June.
But here is the twisted math. Despite home sales dropping drastically, the median home price actually rose to $408,800.
How does that even work?
So demand is cooling because no one can afford the interest rates, but prices are still climbing because there is zero inventory. The math of the American dream is completely broken for the average consumer.
The economy is a mess, but honestly, even the basic rules of sports are completely falling apart right now. Let me tell you about the robot ump.
I cannot believe this actually happened in a professional game. Major League Baseball history was just made, and the humans didn't even realize it at first.
A robot umpire made the first ever game-ending call.
Wait, how?
It is called the Automated Ball Strike System, the ABS. It was the Orioles versus the Rangers. Bottom of the ninth inning, full count, game on the line, the pitcher throws, the batter doesn't swing. The human umpire stands there, and the robot ump confirms a 3-2 high and tight fastball as a strike. It gave Orioles pitcher Albert Suarez his first major league saves in 9 years, sealing an 8-3 victory.
Let's explain the mechanics of how the ABS actually sees the pitch. It uses stereoscopic optical tracking cameras mounted high in the stadium. It builds a three-dimensional bounding box over home plate, perfectly calibrated to the specific height and stance of the batter at the plate.
Right. It adjusts for each player.
It tracks the exact trajectory of the baseball at thousands of frames per second.
And here is the brutal justification for the machines taking over the sport. Human umpires traditionally miss that exact high and tight fastball pitch 22% of the time.
22%?
Yeah. The human eye struggles with the velocity and the angle. The machine got it mathematically perfect, but it fundamentally changes the human element of the game. It completely eliminates pitch framing.
Oh, the art of the catcher catching the ball subtly to fool the umpire.
Exactly. It changes the entire psychology of the at-bat.
Automation is coming for everything. But in the NFL, raw human athleticism is still driving the draft boards. The 2026 NFL draft chatter is extremely volatile right now, and physical freakishness is still the ultimate currency.
You're talking about Nick Singleton.
Penn State running back Nick Singleton is dominating the conversation. He had 1,099 rushing yards in 2024 and almost 1,000 career receiving yards.
The scouting reports on Singleton are wild. Analysts say his linear speed is so terrifying that he plays like his brake lines have been cut.
That's a great description.
That raw velocity makes him a lethal special teams asset, but NFL teams are deeply questioning his lateral agility. Can he change direction at the professional level, or does he just run in a straight, terrifying line?
Meanwhile, on the defensive side, LSU cornerback Mansour Delane is heavily linked to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick. The Bengals desperately need to rebuild their secondary after losing Trey Hendrickson. Mel Kiper Jr. is calling Delane technically sound with an alpha mentality.
But the real sports drama today isn't on the gridiron or the diamond. It is on the ice. Olympic curling is engulfed in a massive cheating scandal. They are calling it the return of Brushgate.
Oh, man. The Canadian men's and women's teams are both facing intense accusations. The Swedish men's team claims Canadian player Mark Kennedy double-touched a stone after its release.
Wait, explain why a double touch matters in curling. It looks like they're just sliding rocks.
It is all about microphysics. The ice isn't smooth, it is pebbled. When the players sweep aggressively in front of the stone, the friction from the brooms slightly melts the ice pebbles.
Yeah.
That creates a microscopic layer of water that reduces friction and changes the curl of the rock. If a player's broom or foot accidentally touches the rug after it is released, which is a double touch, it physically alters the momentum and trajectory of the stone. It is a massive foul.
And this violation wasn't caught by the Olympic officials. The Swedes caught it on their private team cameras.
Exactly. Then, less than 24 hours later, the Canadian women's team actually had a rock forcefully removed from play during their match against Switzerland for the exact same double-touch violation.
Wow.
The paranoia is so high that teams are literally premeditating video surveillance on each other to catch these microfouls. The honor system of curling is dead.
Speaking of intense and completely toxic environments, we need to talk about the catastrophic public health crisis at the southern border. University of California, San Diego researchers just released a terrifying report about the Tijuana River.
The sewage crisis there has been bad for decades, but the physical reality of the contamination has reached a new, horrifying level. The toxins in the river are so concentrated that they have effectively become airborne.
Wait, how does sewage become airborne?
The churning of the polluted water, combined with coastal winds, creates toxic aerosols. Microscopic droplets of bacteria, industrial chemicals, and raw sewage are lifted from the water surface and carried miles inland by the wind.
That is disgusting.
Thousands of residents living near the border are suffering from severe nausea, dizziness, and delirium just from breathing the air in their own backyards.
You don't even have to touch the water to get sick?
Yeah.
The field researchers who are out there collecting the water samples are literally wearing heavy-duty industrial respirators just to stand on the banks.
Yeah.
The local residents are so desperate, they're resorting to what they call nature bathing. They're fleeing to unpolluted areas miles away just to sit in the dirt and clear their lungs for a few hours.
And while California is dealing with airborne sewage, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has launched a massive investigation into the apparel brand Lululemon. The AG's office is alleging that Lululemon's activewear is heavily contaminated with toxic PFAS.
These are the forever chemicals, right? Used for moisture wicking and water resistance.
Yes. Let's look at the chemistry of why they are called forever chemicals. PFAS rely on a carbon-fluorine bond, which is one of the strongest chemical bonds in organic chemistry.
Yep.
It makes the fabric incredibly resistant to water, grease, and sweat, which is why activewear companies love it. But that unbreakable bond means the chemicals literally never break down in nature, and they accumulate in the human bloodstream, linked to massive health issues.
Lululemon strongly denies the allegations, claiming their fabrics meet all current safety standards. But environmental groups are circling like sharks, pushing state legislatures to mandate strict PFAS-free labels on all major apparel brands by 2027.
If Texas finds concrete evidence of contamination, Lululemon could face massive financial fines and mandatory statewide product recalls of millions of pairs of leggings.
I am taking a hard pivot here because we are going from toxic leggings to toxic diplomatic soup.
Yes, the tripe soup war. This is an incredible, highly specific diplomatic feud breaking out between Greece and Turkey over a hangover cure.
A soup war.
A Greek restaurateur in Thessaloniki named Dimitris Sarouhas is actively trying to register patsa soup with UNESCO as a protected, unique piece of Greek cultural heritage.
His historical justification for this is wild. He isn't just claiming it's an old family recipe. He claims that Homer's ancient epic, the Odyssey, explicitly mentions this soup.
Right.
He points to a specific passage about bovine bellies filled with suet and blood, arguing that it was a staple of Greek royalty thousands of years before the Ottoman Empire even existed.
Turkish restaurateurs in Istanbul are absolutely furious at the cultural theft. They claim the soup, which they call iskembe, is an ancient, fundamental Istanbul staple that rightfully belongs to their culinary heritage.
The specifics of the recipes are actually at the center of the debate. The Greek version, the patsa, relies on boiling bovine legs.
Yes.
The mechanics of boiling the cartilage and bone marrow for hours extracts a massive amount of gelatin, giving the broth a deeply thick 33.4% collagen content.
And the Turkish version typically uses pure tripe, the stomach lining, and focuses on a lighter broth heavily cut with vinegar and garlic.
But despite arguing over the origin and the exact collagen percentage, both sides fiercely agree on one thing. The heavy, garlicky broth is the ultimate, undeniable cure for crippling hangovers and stomach ulcers.
If you're watching on YouTube right now, you have to comment, are you Team Greece or Team Turkey on the tripe soup debate? Which culinary history are you backing? Let us know.
I'm team neither, but before we get out of here, we have to look at the bizarre celebrity fallout hitting the wire.
Let's run through the pop culture wire because the legal maneuvering is heavy today. First, representatives for Britney Spears confirm she has voluntarily checked herself into a substance abuse treatment facility.
Okay.
This comes after she was arrested in late March on suspicion of driving under the influence.
She has a formal court date scheduled for May 4. Legally, checking into a facility before the court date is a classic, highly effective pretrial diversion tactic.
It is.
It's a proactive move to address her recovery, but it also signals to the judge that she is taking the incident seriously before formal charges or sentencing guidelines are potentially handed down.
Meanwhile, in Malibu, Baywatch actor David Charvet is under active police investigation for a fatal traffic incident. Just before 6 in the morning, Charvet's pickup truck struck and killed a dog in a private gated community.
The details on the ground are highly contested. The dog's owner, Vera Errico, claims she was walking her 3 dogs and that they were all securely leashed by her side. Charvet claims the dog was completely unleashed, darted out into the dark road, and that he tried to swerve but couldn't avoid the impact.
The mechanics of the investigation are complicated. Law enforcement isn't officially calling it a felony hit and run yet because Charvet did contact authorities shortly after the collision, even though he physically left the immediate scene.
Right now, detectives are aggressively scouring neighborhood ring cameras and security surveillance footage to triangulate exactly who was telling the truth about the leashes. The video evidence will dictate the charges.
It is a messy, tragic situation, but we also have a deeply, profoundly tragic story out of Annandale, Virginia.
Yes. Police discovered the bodies of 47-year-old former Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax and his estranged wife, Serena Fairfax, in what is officially being ruled an apparent murder-suicide.
The forensic details released by authorities paint a horrific picture. Evidence indicates Justin shot Serena in the basement of their shared home before turning the weapon on himself.
It's awful.
The tragedy was discovered by their own teenage son, who had to make the frantic 911 call.
The couple had been formally separated since June 2024, but were still living under the same roof due to the logistics of the separation. Court filings leading up to the violence showed an incredibly tense, deteriorating financial situation, with Justin reportedly failing to pay court-ordered child support or the mortgage on the house.
And making matters infinitely worse, Justin's alma mater, DeMatha Catholic High School, issued a public, official tribute that focused entirely on his political career and achievements, while completely and intentionally sidestepping the violent reality of the murder-suicide of his wife.
The systemic PR failure of that statement is staggering. The backlash against the school for erasing the victim has been intense and entirely justified.
It is an incredibly dark reality check on how institutions fail to handle domestic violence. Let's take a breath, step back, and close out with some of the truly bizarre, lighter oddities happening around the world today, just to recalibrate before we go.
Yeah, please.
In Waconia, Minnesota, the American Legion Post 150 is drawing massive overflow crowds for their traditional meat raffles.
Meat raffles.
People are literally sitting in a hall, gambling their money on a spinning wheel to win vacuum-sealed packages of fajita meat and pork chops. It is a brilliant, absurd way to raise funds to support local veterans.
And over in Paris, a man named Ari Hodara just won the ultimate lottery. He took home a 1941 Pablo Picasso painting titled Head of a Woman. The original painting is valued at $1 million, and he won it in a charity raffle.
How much is the ticket?
The winning ticket cost him exactly $117.
Talk about a return on investment. Meanwhile, in Massachusetts, at Mount Holyoke College, a massive corpse flower, affectionately named Pangy, finally bloomed.
Explain the biology of why people flock to this thing. It smells like death.
It literally does. The plant chemically synthesizes compounds like dimethyl trisulfide and isovaleric acid, which are the exact same chemicals produced by rotting meat and sweaty socks.
Gross.
It does this to attract carrion beetles and flesh flies for pollination. It only blooms once every few years, drawing hundreds of people who just want to endure its signature rotting flesh stench for a few seconds.
And finally, Fatu, the world's oldest gorilla in captivity, just celebrated her 69th birthday at the Berlin Zoo, eating a cake made of rice and fruit, and continuing to completely defy all primate longevity records and cellular biology.
Between AI systems quietly taking over the military's OODA loop, corporate algorithms hallucinating legal defenses and squeezing ticket prices, global leaders relying on humanoid robots for diplomacy, and the sheer unpredictability of our failing infrastructure, you have to look at the big picture. Are we slowly, systematically losing our grip on what it actually means to be a functioning, human-led society?
All right, if we made your drive, your workout, or your downtime even a little bit better today, do us a massive favor. Whether you are watching on YouTube, streaming on Spotify, listening on Apple Podcasts, or literally anywhere else, hit that follow or subscribe button right now. We drop episodes like this every single day, bringing you the world's news in the most interesting way possible. Lock in, because you do not want to miss the crazy stories we have queued up for tomorrow. See you then.